Alex the Great, one of the most famous people in history, let alone Greek history, is going to go and completely transform the ancient world. So we'll be talking today about how he goes and conquers the world, a little bit about his ego, which is quite large. He has quite a big ego, and we'll be talking about some other stuff as well. So we have to go and first understand the region of Macedonia and its importance and its relation in ancient Greece. So here's Macedonia in northern Greece. And when you tend to think about ancient Greece, you're thinking about Athens or Sparta. And it's in northern Greece, and basically the way the Macedonians were considered by the rest of the Greeks, they were mongrels, they were half-breeds, they weren't true Greeks. They wanted to be Greeks, but they weren't. What Macedonia essentially served as, it was, I have the word there, buffer. It was an in-betweener for basically the barbarians, bar to the north, and then the rest of Greece to the south. They're known as kind of like their backwoodsmen, they're rednecks or something like that. They're known for hunting, drinking, having family feuds where they go and they kill each other back and forth. So Macedonia, people want to be like the rest of Greece, but they're not. So we'll have to talk about, before we get to Alexander, we got to talk about his daddy, Mr. Philip. Now, you should see this common theme coming up in the course, is if you go and you're prone to constant attack, which Macedonia is, you are going to go and tend to, or could possibly develop, a military and warrior-based system. So Macedonia goes and develops a system where basically kings are chosen by warriors, and essentially what happens is this. After the Peloponnesian and Persian Wars, southern Greece is incredibly weakened. And the person that's left to pick up the slack is, of all places, is going to be Macedonia. So the Macedonians are going to be the ones that go and really expand their kingdom, and they're going to go both east and then they're going to go south. First they'll go south and they'll go east. Now Mr. Philip II. Philip, in my humble opinion, does not get enough credit. Alexander, everybody's heard of Alexander the Great. Not that many people have heard of Philip II. So I don't think that's that fair, in my opinion. So I'm going to make a good case for Philip. He was the king of Macedon, and he developed Macedon in a period of about 20 years into an effective military fighting force. And what Philip did is he used the technique of the phalanx, specifically with a 16-foot long spear called the sarissa. As you can see there's a line of guys. If these guys here in the front row were all to die in battle, all you have is the people behind them who will just eventually come, and they're going to lower their spears over here. He makes a very, very mobile and effective fighting force, and is basically going to go and be able to conquer the people to the south in the rest of Greece. So Philip, as you can see, I like him because he's missing an eye. He's also known for wearing his eye patch, so there we go. There's my eye patch drawing on Philip. He defeats the Athenians, and he forms what's called the League of Corinth. What the League of Corinth is a way for Philip to go and kind of put the areas that he conquers in a political context. And the League of Corinth is all kind of these Greek alliances, and his ultimate goal is to go finally attack the Persians and take them out. However, in a kind of sad twist of fate, very ironic twist of fate, one of Philip's bodyguards goes and assassinates him. And while the assassin is running away, he is killed by the other bodyguard. So we actually don't know exactly why Philip was assassinated by that bodyguard. Lots of conspiracy theories, and some have even said that Alexander was behind it. But those are just, we don't really know. There's kind of theories that people have thrown out there. So there's Mr. Phil for you. So he's known for going and developing those backward redneck Macedonians into an effective fighting force and taking over Greece, and then forming the League of Corinth in order to go and hopefully attack Persia. Now I'll let you pause here. This is a story basically about Alexander the Great, and the context here is, and I'm not going to read it for you. You can, like I said, you can pause and read this. But the context here is that Alexander was destined for greatness, and his mom truly believed that. She was one of Philip's several wives. She believed that Alexander was going to be the top dog. He was known as actually going and having one eye that was as blue as the sky and one as dark as the darkest night. Supposedly he had a brown eye and a blue eye. He also, if you look at a lot of the sculpture, he goes and he has a twist, his neck twists, and he's looking up to the heavens. He's known for, as we learned with our philosophers, he was tutored by Mr. Aristotle, so he's known for being intellectual and being a scientist and an avid reader. He's also known for having a fiery temper. Some people have thrown out in recent years, there was that recent Alexander movie that he was homosexual, which could be common for, as we discussed in ancient Greece, but we really don't know. He tends just not to be interested in males or females, not until later in life when he goes and gets married. Alexander is known, though, for having an ego, because basically he grows up and his mom's telling him, Alexander, you're the best. Alexander, you're descended from the two greatest Greek heroes of all time, Achilles and Hercules. You're meant to be doing something great. So Alexander's going to have a big old head on top of his shoulders. So he comes to the throne at an early age, 20. Okay, he's a kid. And he's going to go and try to basically continue Daddy's memory of what Dad did or wanted to do was conquer Persia. So he's going to use this Greek alliance to go conquer Persia. It's a combination of both military and diplomatic efforts. Diplomatic means he's kind of using his words. It's kind of the opposite of military. He's going to fight the Persians, defeat the Persians. One of the things that I respect about him, he's directly involved in the battles. He gets stabbed in battles. He cuts people's heads off. He does all that fun stuff, which is kind of cool and unique for a military ruler. He wins basically every battle he ever fights, which is not too bad of a record. So some of the main battles that you need to be aware of are the Battle of Granicus, the Battle of Tyre, and Gaugamela. Now, Granicus is the first battle. It's a river, Granicus River, between Alexander and the Persians. So he's going to go, and his goal now here is to conquer the Persian Empire. And Granicus River is famous because the Persians employed mercenaries. And mercenaries are hired soldiers. And when the Persians basically saw that they were going to lose the battle, they skedaddled, and the mercenaries were left. And the mercenaries basically begged for Alexander's forgiveness, and in typical Alexander fashion, Alexander had all of them killed, which is kind of awesome. Tyre is one of my favorite battles. Tyre is basically modern-day kind of Lebanon, Middle East-ish area. And Tyre was an island. It's a big old island surrounded by huge walls, and they're kind of taunting Alexander. Alexander can't conquer them. And one of my favorite moves of all time, Alexander decides, if you're an island half a mile off the side of the coast, I'm going to go and just build a bridge out to you guys. So Alexander goes and builds a bridge all the way out to Tyre. One of the final main battles is the Battle of Gaugamela. The Persian king at the time that Alexander is advancing towards is Darius III. And the Battle of Gaugamela, they use what's known as the basically in the mousetrap position. What happens is, essentially, pretend you have the two lines here. You have we'll call that the Persian line, and we'll call this the Greek line or Alexander's line. As the Persian horses are coming on their chariots towards the line, what happens is essentially the people on the Greek line, a horse will run into an empty area. The people on the Greek line will step aside, and they'll basically form like a little alley, and then the horse is going to go, and he's going to run right into this alley, bam, and then all the guys on the side, I'll make it red because it'll be nice and bloody, they're going to go and start stabbing the horses. So, sorry horse lovers, but it's famous for this basically stepping at the side and going in, defeating Darius. Now, the weird thing is this. When Alexander goes and actually meets Darius' family, he treats them with kindness and respect. He gets along, he hangs out with Darius' mother, and while Darius is actually fleeing from him. And this is going to be a common theme of what happens. Now, what ironically happens as well is one of the satraps of Darius, they're going to go and assassinate Darius. And Alexander, seeking to honor Darius, goes and finds those assassins and has them murdered himself. And he's kind of claimed as the restorer of Persia. And the Persian people respect him because he basically stood up for their leader, although ironically he was the one chasing after him in the first place. But you get the idea. Now he goes down to Egypt. He's welcomed as a pharaoh there. Their version of Zeus, Amun-Ra, he's basically worshipped as a god. And the sad part with Alexander is going to end here with this Indian campaign. Now, in India, essentially what happened was this. After a period of years, Alexander had gone and his soldiers were tired. They were basically over. the whole idea of conquering. They get to a river and they see a bunch of fresh Indian troops, war elephants on the other side, and they say, "No way, Jose, we're not doing it." And Alexander goes and mopes in his tent for 3 days, and then he decides to turn around and go back to Greece. He decides to go and turn around and go back to Greece, but with that said, he says we have to go the other way, different way we came, so they have to fight their way out of Greece. So let me talk a bit about, here in a second, of why the troops are going to turn against Alexander. Here's the Battle of Granicus River, the one where they killed the mercenary. Here's Tyre, and then here's the bridge that they constructed. It's still there today. They built on top of it, but pretty cool that he went and just decided to build it. Not necessarily because it was a strategic, area to have. It's probably more arrogance than anything. And then here's the good old mousetrap, Gaugamela, and killing the horses. Sorry, horse lovers. Now, Alexander is not free from controversy. The men, like I said, in India basically got fed up and wanted to turn around. They're going to revolt. A big thing with Alexander, he got accused of being a sellout. He got accused of being a Persian. He started to dress like a Persian. He got a bunch of Persian wives. He required the prostration. Prostration is basically where you go, and you've probably seen this in a movie, where like a king comes in and everybody has to get down on their knees and start bowing down and going, "Not worthy," that type of thing. Well, Alexander's troops don't care if he does that with the Persians. But when he starts to make them do it, that's when they cross the line. He's smart. He follows the model of satrapies. You can watch the Persia video if you want to, from Unit 2, if you need a bit more background on how that worked. And he goes in and not so humbly names basically every city that he conquers. He names a bunch of cities, Alexandria, after himself, obviously. So the reason I have the word traitor there is he's seen as a traitor. He's seen as a sellout. Not good, Alexander. Not good. Huge. Huge, huge, huge. The stuff he does by the time he's 30 years old is more than people could even dream of accomplishing in entire countries and generations. And this is essentially what one man did. But like I said, don't forget Philip, because Philip set up the framework of the base work for Alexander to work from. But look at this. The Persian Empire, Egypt, Macedonia, all of Greece. It's incredible. Now, you can't just be Alexander the Great and just have a normal death. You're going to have to go, and like they say, only the good die young, and he's going to die about 32, 33 years old. He goes and has a drinking party, and he gets basically a high fever after that, and for a few weeks he's kind of laying in bed, getting sicker and sicker, and then he dies. Alexander the Great's death has been something historians have always gone and tried to figure out. Was it malaria? Was it poison? Was it alcoholism? Was it that he was grieved over the death of his best friend? It probably, honestly, may have been a combination of those, any of those things. We really don't know. All we know is this guy, despite all he conquered, all he did, he's going to die at a very, very young age. And then the question is, who's going to take over after he's done? And on his deathbed, Alexander goes and replies when somebody asks him this question, "The strongest one," which is like super dramatic. So Alexander ends with that, like that his life ends there. But as we go and you see our next lesson on the Hellenistic kingdoms, you're going to see his legacy extends much further than that.